El Chapo's wife wasn't just caught, she was exposed. And the cartel didn't just make an example out of her. They sent a message to him, and when that message reached Joaquin El Chapo Guzman inside his heavily fortified U.S. Supermax cell, what he did next shocked even the most seasoned prison authorities. El Chapo's shocking reaction. El Chapo just found out a cartel took his wife. But the real shock, who ordered it? This isn't just betrayal. It's a declaration of war from within his own bloodline. And trust me, the most jaw-dropping part of this story is still coming, because the next few minutes will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty inside the world's deadliest cartel. It began not with gunshots, but with a phone call, not a coded message, not a burner device. Just a single call. That's all it took for the most feared man in Mexico to learn that Emma Cornelius Bureau, the former beauty queen turned cartel wife, had been intercepted not by U.S. Marshals, not by the DEA, but by members of her husband's own cartel. Who ordered it? That remains a mystery, but whispers point toward a fragmented Sinaloa cartel now fractured since El Chapo's capture, where loyalty isn't measured in blood, but in usefulness. What we do know is this: Emma was snatched, interrogated, and held. The reason? She was allegedly caught in possession of sensitive cartel intel, and someone high up wanted answers. Far. And here's where it gets terrifying. Inside ADX Florence, America's most secure prison, dubbed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, Chapo's routine was as lifeless as the concrete walls around him, until one morning guards noticed something strange. He had received a legal visit, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual, however, was what happened after. According to a prison source speaking anonymously to Vice News, Chapo refused to return to his cell for over 15 minutes after the meeting, something entirely unprecedented for a man who rarely even makes eye contact with staff anymore. That same source claims Guzman appeared visibly distressed, even whispering something unintelligible in Spanish, before being forcefully guided back to solitary. So what happened in that room? According to one of the few men who actually saw Chapo behind bars, a former inmate named Bam Bam, the signs were already there months ago. In an interview on Vlad TV, he describes how the entire unit of ADX Florence was emptied out and restructured just for Chapo, an extreme measure unheard of, even for terrorists. They took El Chapo and they redid that whole thing, reinforced it, and they got that man on a whole tip that what 48 people was supposed to be on. So he got the whole tip. But here's where the hypocrisy gets blistering. Just a few years ago, Chapo's wife was begging for human right. In an emotional interview with Telemundo, Emma Cornell pleaded for better treatment for her husband, stating, "Forward, and now she's the one being deprived of rights," reportedly tied to a chair for hours, held incommunicado, and accused of leaking cartel communications to rival factions. Who gave the order? There's only one theory that makes sense: a power struggle inside the very heart of the Sinaloa cartel. According to former DEA agent Hector Bells, El Chapo was never the boss, and this might be payback from the real power behind the Sinaloa machine. Ismael Elmo Zambada. El Chapo was never ahead of anything. They made him bigger than he is. Des Chapo wasn't the cartel's leader, just a foot soldier elevated by mere fear and media. If that's true, and Mayo saw Emma as a threat, it wouldn't be hard to authorize a quiet message through internal cartel network. And if this whole thing sounds like a twisted love story, let's not forget El Chapo chose Emma when she was just 17. She later gave him twin daughters and stood by him through 2 escapes, a Hollywood meeting with Sean Penn, and a trial that aired his darkest secrets. But now she's alone, and Chapo, stripped of his empire, may have just realized what true powerlessness feels like. And yet, this is just the beginning, because the most shocking part of this story isn't that Emma was taken, it's that she might have been cooperating willingly. And here's where things spiral into a full-blown psychological war, because if Emma wasn't caught smuggling information, then the only other explanation makes things worse. She may have been cooperating, and that, in the eyes of the Sinaloa cartel, is a death sentence. In 2021, Emma was sentenced to 3 years in prison for conspiring to traffic drugs and help El Chapo escape. But prosecutors claim she showed extraordinary cooperation with federal authorities. It's a phrase that sent shockwaves through Mexican underworlds, not because it was confirmed, but because it wasn't denied. Prosecutors said she helped Chapo run his empire from prison. Even worse, her relatively light sentence and subsequent early release into a residential reentry program in 2023 sparked speculation that she may have made a secret deal with U.S. agencies. Now think about this from Chapo's perspective. You're caged, isolated, watched 24/7, and the one person you trusted to carry your legacy, the mother of your twin daughters, is not only walking free, but may have handed cartel secrets to the very people who tried to destroy you. Now imagine finding out she was kidnapped by your own people for exactly that reason. And here's where El Chapo's reaction takes center stage. In an extremely rare letter reportedly passed through legal channels and leaked to a Mexican journalist, El Chapo didn't defend Emma. He didn't deny the allegations. Instead, he referred to his wife in chillingly neutral language, writing only, "Everyone has to live with the consequences of the choices they make," attributed by J.S. Villanueva, reformer. And that silence, that cold, loaded silence in cartel language, that's as good as an execution order. Now let's rewind the timeline to when things really began to unravel. It was January 2023, just days after El Chapo's son, Ovidio Guzman, was captured in a violent military operation in Jesus Maria, Sinaloa, according to Luis Chaparro, a journalist embedded in cartel circles. Emma Cornell's name had surfaced in internal communications during that chaotic raid. A voice intercepted on a cartel radio channel allegedly asked, "Is the woman still in contact with the gringos?" The term gringos wasn't about tourists. It was DEA code. And within 72 hours, Emma vanished from public view. Reports suggested she went into hiding. Others claimed she was taken in for cartel questioning. But here's the eerie detail. No one saw her leave, and no one saw her arrive at any facility. That silence was louder than a gunshot. And speaking of eerie silence, let's talk about Chapo's current mental state. In an exclusive podcast interview, a former Supermax inmate named Bam Bam described the bizarre behavior Chapo displayed after being relocated to a completely sealed-off tier of ADX Florence. He maybe seen something, but he was in that corner looking up. So we told Freddy, we trying to get at him. We don't respond. So then the police start hearing us knocking. So what they start doing is they wouldn't bring him out while we was in. They would wait till we come out on their side. Then that's when they start doing his wick so that we couldn't be trying to get his attention. Bam speculates Chapo wasn't mentally breaking. He was strategizing, analyzing, maybe even looking for weaknesses in the structure of his solitary confinement. But after the news of Emma's abduction, that eerie focus turned into paranoia. According to one prison source cited in La Haneda, El Chapo became uncooperative, refused his weekly legal visit, and asked for pen and paper, something he hadn't done in over a year. What did he write? We don't know, but that request was reportedly flagged by prison authorities and passed to Homeland Security for content review. Now, let's take a step back and examine the bigger hypocrisy here. In one of the most revealing interviews El Chapo ever gave, the infamous sit-down with Sean Penn, he paints himself as a simple man who only did what he had to do to survive. For music, marijuana, music. He even goes as far as saying music, but now, the man who once said, "Freedom is beautiful," lives in a reinforced cage while his entire world outside collapses, his children hunted, his wife captured, and his legacy on the verge of being overwritten by newer, more ruthless bosses. And the worst part, Chapo can't do a damn thing about it. Still, there's one name that keeps surfacing in whispers from insiders. One name that might be behind Emma's capture: Los Chapitos, the very sons of El Chapo himself. Ivan Archivaldo, Jesus, Alfredo, and Ovidio are believed to be running a brutal splinter faction of the Sinaloa cartel, a faction that may now see their own mother as a threat to their empire. You heard that right. Chapo's sons may have sanctioned the capture of their own mother. El Chapo's sons run one of the most dangerous fentanyl empires. And here's the logic. If she cooperated with U.S. authorities, she could inadvertently expose their entire fentanyl operation, including alleged ties to Chinese chemical suppliers and corrupt Mexican officials. So what do? You cut the cord. You send a message. You eliminate the liability, even if that liability once shared your last name. And just when you think this story can't get darker, just wait, because in the next chapter, we'll explore the secret conversations captured on intercepted calls, the alleged ransom photos sent to Chapo's legal team, and a shocking twist involving Emma's former bodyguard, who's now missing and believed to be buried somewhere in Durango. If you thought El Chapo's empire died with his arrest, think again. It's still very much alive, and it's eating itself from the inside out. The inside story. This is where the story stops being just about betrayal and becomes something darker. Because if the rumors are true, Emma Coronel's capture wasn't a warning. It was a declaration of war issued by her own stepchildren, Los Chapitos. And what happened in the days that followed her disappearance suggests this may be the bloodiest family feud the Sinaloa cartel has ever seen. Let's backtrack to the power structure. For years, mainstream media portrayed El Chapo Guzman as the kingpin, the sole mastermind behind the Sinaloa cartel. But according to DEA sources, that wasn't even close to reality. In fact, former DEA Special Agent Hector Barrels flat out stated, El Chapo was never really a major. They made him bigger than what he is. He claims the true boss, the Real shot caller, has always been Ismael Elmo Zambada, and after El Chapo's arrest, it was his sons, not his allies, who rose to power. But here's the twist. Emma Cornell never had a solid relationship with Los Chapitos. According to Cartel, insiders interviewed by Vice and Proceso, Emma was seen as a civilian, tolerated only because she carried Chapo's legacy in the form of their twin daughters. But once Chapo was locked away in ADX Florence, her usefulness expired, and when rumors surfaced that she'd been speaking to prosecutors, even if only to secure a plea deal for herself, it didn't matter whether it was true. What mattered was how it looked. One of the most chilling pieces of evidence came from a leaked voice message, allegedly from an intercepted call between two cartel members in the Sinaloa Highlands. In the message, a man with a Culiacan accent can be heard saying she knew too much. She should have stayed quiet. That message, translated and authenticated by Luis Chaparro on the Shaw Ryan show, is believed to be referencing Emma, and it was recorded just 48 hours after her sudden disappearance from public view. Luis Chaparro breaks into a video Guzman's house after raid, but it gets worse. One of Emma's former bodyguards, a man only known by his alias Compa Ellis, went missing in March of that same year. Locals in Durango reported finding a burned-out SUV on a rural trail outside Temuzula. Inside were two charred bodies. Neither had identification. What made the scene even more suspicious was the military-style gear and tactical boots, hallmarks of cartel enforcers, found near the vehicle. Though the identities were never publicly confirmed, Mexican journalists suggest one of them was Ellis. And if that's true, there's only one reason a bodyguard like him ends up in pieces. He talked, but perhaps the most disturbing development happened in the U.S., not Mexico. In a confidential leak obtained by Univision, Emma's reentry program counselor filed a behavioral report in late 2023 stating that the subject has expressed fear that individuals may be surveilling her from outside the facility. A FOIA request revealed that the FBI was notified but took no immediate protective measures, citing lack of actionable evidence. Just weeks later, security cameras at the halfway house Emma was assigned to in Long Beach, California, were vandalized. No suspects were ever identified. But surveillance tampering, that's not the work of fans. That's the signature of professionals. Now let's shift to something deeper, something no one in the media wants to say out loud. There is a pattern, a disturbing one, because Emma Correll isn't the first cartel spouse to mysteriously vanish or turn up under cartel scrutiny. She's just the most high-profile. Consider Griselda Lopez, Chapo's other wife and the mother of a video Guzman. She vanished for nearly 2 years after Chapo's arrest, only to re-emerge right around the time of a video's capture. Her reappearance sparked speculation that she had been kept under internal cartel protection, possibly even under house arrest, not by the government but by cartel leadership itself. One journalist who came face with her outsider video's property recalls being physically blocked by a private cartel security detail. In his words, she started shouting, "No, no, no." And her guys jumped at me. That wasn't the government. That was cartel. So if even Griselda is being monitored, what chance did Emma have? And that brings us back to El Chapo, locked away, watching everything unravel. One concrete wall at a time. According to Bam Bam, who did time with Chapo and ADX, the moment he saw El Chapo acting strange, looking up at corners, standing still for hours, he didn't think he was breaking down. He thought Chapo was waiting. I thought he was trying to figure out a way to get out of there. He was always just looking up and looking at the wall, because you know you got around. You got the be up there on top of him, waiting for confirmation, waiting for retribution, or waiting for someone to pay the price for Emma's betrayal. Because despite his capture, despite everything the media says, El Chapo still has influence. Former intelligence agent Ed Calderon, appearing on Joe Rogan, confirmed that cartel members still risked lives to rescue Chapo's son when he was captured in 2019. Not only did they storm Sinaloa, they defeated the Mexican army. So if they did that for his son, what do you think they do if Chapo ordered retribution from prison cell? We'll never know if Chapo actually ordered anything, but we do know this. Emma was removed from the public eye. Her bodyguard vanished, and the cartel lost total trust in her after her early release. That's not coincidence. That's surgical discipline, cartel style. And it's why some former Narrows believe Emma's time is already up and that her reappearance in 2024 was a carefully constructed facade orchestrated either by the DEA or by Elmo's inner circle to prevent retaliation from spiraling out of control. One Mexican official even told Proceso, "We don't know who she's working for anymore, but it's not El Chapo." Processes Emma may have been cut off from all Sinaloa cartel resources. And here's the nightmare scenario. If Los Chapitos really sanctioned her disappearance and Chapo finds out, we could be staring down the barrel of a civil war inside the most powerful cartel in North America. And that war wouldn't be fought in the mountains. It would be fought from prison phones from American cities and through billions in illicit fentanyl profits already flooding the U.S. thanks to the Chapitos chemical network with Chinese suppliers. Justice Department Los Chapitos run fentanyl trafficking ring tied to Chinese chemical brokers. And that raises the final terrifying question. Is Emma just the beginning, or is she the first domino in the collapse of a dynasty? The broader implication at the heart of all this betrayal, the abduction, the vanishing bodyguard, the cartel infighting, lies one unnerving truth. Emma Coronel may no longer be alive, or if she is, she's no longer living as Emma Coronel, wife of El Chapo, mother to his twin daughters, queen of narco folklore. That version of her is gone, either buried under the weight of her own choices or buried for real. Because in the weeks following her last confirmed public appearance, something unprecedented happened. El Chapo sent a sealed letter. According to leaked court correspondence obtained by La Jornada, Chapo's legal team submitted an unusual request to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons in early 2024 to transfer a letter from Chapo to an unnamed family member. That family member was later unofficially identified by reporters as Emma Coronel. But here's the chilling part. The Bureau of Prisons rejected the request, not because it violated security, but because according to their internal review, the recipient has not been verified as living at the address provided. Let that sink in. The federal prison system, the most documented and monitored institution on the continent, had no confirmed contact information for the wife of the world's most famous drug lord less than 6 months after she was publicly released. That's not an oversight. That's a disappearance. But if Emma's gone, whether dead, relocated, or hiding, it raises a far more terrifying question. Who did Chapo write that letter to? And what did it say? A prison source who spoke anonymously with Vice claimed the letter contained no explicit threat, but did reference honor and protecting the bloodline. That language, cartel experts agree, points directly to Chapo's daughters, whom Emma gave birth to in 2011. And in cartel logic, protecting the bloodline isn't just about family. It's about revenge. Because if Los Chapitos sanctioned Emma's capture and Chapo now sees them as enemies, there's a war coming. And it won't be a street war. It'll be a legacy war. Let's talk about that $5 million bounty. In early 2024, a journalist filming near a Guzman family property in Sinaloa was approached by an armed group. The encounter caught on camera shows a woman shouting, "No, no, no," before armed men intercept the journalist. The woman was later confirmed to be Ovidio Guzman's mother, El Chapo's ex-wife, Griselda Lopez. This woman starts saying, "No, no, 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 no," and then these dudes jump at me. And then he's like, "Oh, underscoring for this is not government." The clip ends abruptly. What's left unsaid in the video is that Griselda also has a $5 million bounty on her head, just like Emma did. The difference: Griselda is under cartel protection. Emma, no one knows where she is. And here's the worst case theory floating in dark corners of cartel forums. Emma was silenced, not because of betrayal, but to prevent retaliation. Because if the Chapitos feared that Chapo would find out she was cooperating and feared he would respond, their only move was to erase her first. But what about the U.S. government? They had Emma. They sentenced her. They released her. And then radio silence. Could they have placed her into witness protection? Unlikely. And here's why. Multiple investigative journalists, including Luis Chaparro, have stated that Emma refused to testify during El Chapo's trial. She never officially flipped, so she wouldn't qualify for formal federal protection. But she might have been offered something else, something far more clandestine, soft shielding, a government-funded ghosting, not through legal programs, but through unofficial back channels. Essentially, disappear, and we won't ask questions. So where does that leave El Chapo? In the one place he's feared more than death: errance. Think about it. For decades, he was the most powerful name in drug trafficking. His tunnels were feats of engineering. His escapes legendary. His myth untouchable. Now, he's just a man in a cave, abandoned, betrayed, and powerless to stop the empire he built from turning against the very woman he once called his queen. And he knows it. Music. That clip was recorded before his final capture, before extradition, before the silence. If we could ask Chapo now, are you happy? His answer would be a shrug, because there is no freedom when your family's fate lies in someone else's hands. But here's the final twist. The Sinaloa cartel isn't collapsing. It's evolving. According to Ed Calderon and cartel reporters, the cartel is now running legitimate businesses, laundering money through legal infrastructure, and spreading influence, not just across Latin America, but into the U.S. political and commercial sectors. Cartels now shifting from drugs to legitimate industries. They've moved beyond El Chapo, beyond Emma, even beyond Elmo. And what's replacing them isn't a person, it's a system, a cold, faceless corporate criminal empire. So, what happens next? What becomes of El Chapo locked away in a concrete sarcophagus? What becomes of Emma, wherever she is? And what happens when the new cartel leaders stop fighting for power and start erasing the past? We may already have our answer, because in the world of cartels, there are only two endings, oblivion or a bullet. And for Emma Carell, it might be both.